Hello, everyone. Welcome to this exclusive video interview series as part of our ebook, The Broken Candidate Experience. Here's How to Fix It, brought to you by ETHRWorld Southeast Asia in association with Paradox. I'm Yasmin Taj, editor ETHRWorld International and head branded content for the Economic Times. As a part of this exclusive ebook, we bring to you in-depth insights from leading talent leaders from across Southeast Asia, where they reveal some interesting narratives and learnings on how to win and retain the right talent by offering an authentic and positive candidate experience, which makes hiring easier, faster, and impactful. We all know that the last few tumultuous years have paradoxically changed the meaning of work, careers, and workforce. People want to feel related and connected to the organization they want to work with. They're looking for meaning and purpose. No longer do employers have the opportunity to cash in the immense talent available. It is a candidate-driven market where employees are the choosers and the war for talent has only intensified. This year, 2023, is being no different. Inflation, recession, layoffs, and the cost of hiring are all adding up to the challenges for the CHROs and their recruitment teams. So in this interview, we will look at why HR and recruitment leaders need to take urgent action on their current candidate experience to attract the right talent. And to drive this conversation, I'm excited to have with me Jerald Chen, who's head TA at foodpanda. Jerald is currently leading foodpanda's APAC talent acquisition with overall accountability for recruitment across all tech plus product and business lines. His expertise lies in building and scaling cross-functional TA capabilities for the region, including business partnering, talent sourcing, executive search, early careers, employer branding, TA operations, projects, and transformations. Hi, Jerald. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to host you.
Thanks, Yasmin. Glad to be here.
Same here. Glad to have you with us. And to further dive into the topic with subject expertise, we have with us Zhenlin Ong, who is Director Client Success at Paradox. With over 15 years of work experience, Zhenlin is responsible for leading the strategy and execution of client success services. Prior to this, she was in a similar role with Cornerstone On Demand and ADP. Hi, Zhenlin. It's a pleasure to have you with us as well.
Hi, Yasmin. Happy to be here.
Great. So I'm looking forward to some great insights from the both of you. We know that candidate experience in this employee-driven market has become immensely important for us. So if I may ask you first, Jerald, what do you think and what does drive a good candidate experience according to you?
Thanks, Yasmin. So I think first of all, it's about getting the basics right. The small things really add up to the overall experience, so it can be very simple things like providing timely updates to the candidate, not ghosting them, right? That happens quite often. Making sure that everyone in the hiring process contributes to the experience. So for example, we would remind our interviewers to always be on time, turn on their cameras for video interviews and etc. In short, I would say it's about making the process as smooth, frictionless and seamless as possible. But on top of that, we also would like our candidates to feel that the experience was meaningful to them. So even if they end up not getting selected for the role, the idea is that they walk away at least having learned something about the company or something about themselves, right? Because even though maybe there's no match today, you never know when there might be a match for a position in future. And their impression today will matter then, right? People also tend to share their interview experiences with their networks. Like personally, I can remember quite a few occasions when I get ghosted by interviewers, and sometimes, they take months to come back even. These are experiences that I'll tell like 5 or 10 of my friends about. And after a while, that kind of attaches to the brand of the company.
I think it really does impact the employer brand overall, because whether your current employees, your future prospective employees, everybody is like a brand ambassador for you. So the experience you build for them. And Jerald, you very rightly said, it's about keeping that communication open with them, whether they come on board and how is the process going, making it frictionless, seamless, meaningful for them, or whether they are not coming on board, but keeping them informed on your decision. I think those are very important points to keep the candidate experience, intact. Zhenlin, your thoughts on what drives a good candidate experience today?
Yeah, I echo everything that Jerald was saying, spot on, because what we are hearing as well from candidates and employers alike is that speed is everything. And speed to respond to the candidate, every part of the process is so critical today. If you're imagining yourself applying for a job, you want to hear back fast. You don't want to wait for 1 week and then just not really be sure where you're placed in your application. Did I submit the right things? Are they even considering me? And when we're going through that process, maybe the recruiters are feeling that, I'm doing a lot of work, but we're taking a lot of action, reviewing all these candidates. But from the candidate's point of view, it's transparent. They don't see any of that active activity going on. So it's always that speed of response and then making it conversational, right? I think one of the biggest things that candidates often feel, and we see that with data coming through based on our studies, is that we have very high drop-off rates on candidate applications because they're asked to fill out a form. And even before they can get to the form, they're asked to create a username and password. But where we should actually start the conversation, start the application with a conversational approach, just like how we are having this conversation now, and just capturing the candidate, showing them that this is my employer brand. We're really interested in you. We're really interested in the talent and the skills that you bring to the table, and help them get through the application process quicker, a more consumer grade experience, and then also, make sure that we're constantly in touch with them, which is exactly what Jerald said. We don't want to ghost candidates. We want to make sure that we're keeping them abreast of the progress that's happening on our recruiter side. Even for them, there's no action to take. It's always good to let your candidates know that there is work being done in the background.
Yeah, I think the keyword that I caught on, Zhenlin, was consumer grade experience. I think that's what we need to look at our candidates also as our consumers, and build that kind of an experience for them by not ghosting them, by keeping up with speed with them on speed, because they have multiple offers in their hands in today's time, if you look at them. So what will make them choose you is going to be your proactiveness in being in touch with them. So great points. Thanks for sharing that. Jerald, I'd like to come back to you now. So amongst all that this is happening, leaders have an opportunity to gain an edge in the battle for talent. They can deliver a superior recruiting experience to every candidate, even those who don't receive an offer. And we just discussed that. So how are you delivering the white glove recruiting experience job seekers expect? And how is it going for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Yasmin. So I just want to go back to something you said at the beginning, right? The statement around how the candidate experience is broken. That's a pretty strong statement, a bit provocative. I wouldn't go as far as to say that the candidate experience is broken. I do agree, however, that there are quite a lot of things that companies can do to try and improve, right? I think there are definitely gaps that can be looked at. So over here at foodpanda, we try to look at our end-to-end candidate experience as holistically as possible. And we also collect as much data as we can at every stage of the application process and interview process, right? So we know where and how to improve. Just as an example, one of the things that we do is we actually monitor how long CVs have been sitting in our system. When an application comes in, how long has a CV been sitting there? These days, everybody knows the volumes are pretty heavy, right, that the recruiters have to deal with. So we try our very best not to let CVs fall into a black hole. Over here, our recruiters are actually trained to review CVs within 2 weeks. In most cases, that same rule applies at every stage of the recruitment process. So if you've gone for an interview, ideally you shouldn't have to wait longer than 2 weeks to hear about the outcome of your interview, right? And to measure how we're tracking in candidate experience, one of the things that we actually do is we send out surveys to all of our candidates. As long as they've attended at least one business interview, they will receive a survey. It's a simple survey, right? We'll ask them about their impression, how well they understood the role, how well the role was explained to them, what was their impression of the company before as well as after the interview process, right? And we try to use this data and feedback from candidates to try and improve ourselves. I'm happy to say that foodpanda is actually tracking quite well on this front. We do see a very huge uplift in scores between the points of time before and after going through the interview process. So I think we're probably adding some value in that sense, right? And one of the other things that we also do is we try to provide as much interview feedback as possible in a timely manner to candidates. According to a LinkedIn survey, I think 93 or 94% of candidates do want to receive interview feedback, but only about 41% of them have received it before. So we believe that even those candidates who don't get an offer should still be able to benefit and learn something from the process. And, based on our conversations with candidates, because of this interview feedback that we're giving to them, they have indeed found it very useful, and they learn about different aspects of our business that maybe they didn't know existed before. And maybe this is one of the reasons why, the scores have gone up in the surveys.
Great to know how foodpanda is actually, one of the front runners, I think, in this journey, because usually with the scale, you mentioned that the kind of CVs people receive, the kind of scale of applications that come through, it becomes difficult. But yes, as you said, data can help, especially to filter that out. And then keeping track and the 2-week timeline that you've given to your recruitment teams, I think that's very interesting to know, because otherwise it becomes very challenging. And giving feedback to each person, each application, I think that builds a lot towards creating a good candidate experience. But Jerald, I'd also like to ask you, while these are the good things that are happening, there's still many challenges, right? Because again, the scale is so huge of the applications you get. What are the other current roadblocks, or what's hampering the speed and efficiency of the hiring process according to you?
Yeah, so there are a couple of common complaints that we get in our surveys from candidates, right? So one of them is they don't, receive timely responses. So that's totally understandable. I think it does happen from time to time. So that's definitely something that we are looking to try and improve. One of the things that we do is we have, regular reporting, which tells recruiters, how long somebody has been waiting for feedback. In some cases, it's difficult to avoid, right? Because in reality, you might have a situation where, we've interviewed, just half of the short list, and there's still maybe 3 or 4 candidates that haven't yet gone through the process. And we probably would want to complete the entire short list, and it might take a bit more than 2 weeks. So I think the key there is really just the communication, as you've mentioned before, just letting the candidates know, hey, we haven't forgotten about you, right? But we still have a few people to talk to, and we'll come back to you as soon as those are completed. One of the other common complaints that we hear about is, the interview process is really long, right? One of the ways that we try to alleviate that is we try to think about, for every interview round, what's the purpose, right? What are we assessing exactly? And we try to also work with our business leaders and our interviewers and partner with them to try and ensure that, each interview round serves a distinct purpose, so that we're not wasting time, right? And, if it's not serving a purpose, or if there's no clear objective in terms of what we're assessing, in terms of skills, fit, culture, values, and so on, then, maybe we shouldn't have that interview round. So these are some of the things that we're trying to have. These are some of the things that we're trying to do in the background, and conversations that we're having with our business to try and speed things up a little bit at the back end.
Great, thanks for sharing. I think these challenges are very real. I think, as you said, with the scale, keeping that communication open, ensuring that you tell them that, yes, the wait is there. The process is a little lengthy, but we are there and we're hearing you. I think that's very important. Zhenlin, your thoughts, you've worked with multiple organizations. What kind of roadblocks have you heard from the people you speak to about the hiring process and the speed and efficiency?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, Jerald, I'm so happy to hear that you're questioning current processes, because that's always the starting point when we kind of introduce change and we want to get efficient and we talk about business process improvement. We want to question the purpose of every single thing that we're doing today, right? Just think about your traditional IT implementations, automation that you're introducing to the process. That really opens up a conversation about what are you doing today and what's the purpose around that. And if I think about the roadblocks, it's not just about just putting a technology in place, right? It's how you actually use it, because everybody's constrained by the same 24 hours. And I would actually say that time is our biggest roadblock. Like you have recruiters in Jerald's team who are given a KPI of reviewing all the CVs in 2 weeks, right? But do you have the time to review 100 CVs, talk to your candidates, schedule interviews, do all the things that you need to do right for your candidates to feel that they are really treasured in this process? within a 2 weeks period. And this is where it's a good time to think about, okay, maybe automation needs to come in. What can we do and high-evolve that's administrative that will give the recruiters back time to do more value-added things, right? Value-added things like talking to a candidate. Those things AI cannot like come and do this for you, right? We need the human touch there to be involved. But interview scheduling, for example, your recruiters are scheduling when they are at work, which is just business hours, and everyone has, like I said, the same 24 hours a day. And I feel that that's really the biggest constraint, just trying to balance administrative tasks, getting everything done, and also making sure that they are taking care of the candidates, doing the right things by them as well.
Thanks, Zhenlin. I think that's quite a real challenge when you said that there are only 24 hours in a day, and out of that also you'll be working for 8 to 10 hours max. But managing that kind of scale, and especially the larger the organization, I think the scale becomes even more bigger, and the kind of levels you're hiring for becomes even more difficult. So I think that's a real-time challenge. I'll come back to you, Jerald, and I want to ask you, you spoke a lot about, how speed is one of the main drivers, and we can, so according to you, how do you think can we improve our hiring speed? Or also you spoke about the lengthy interview process. How can we shorten that? Has your organization been working towards some steps to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Yasmin. So I definitely agree that speed is important, right? However, I think whether or not it's the primary driver depends on quite a few different factors. And whether or not the hiring process can be optimized for speed and efficiency would also depend on several factors, right? It could depend on the role requirements. It could depend on the seniority as well as the complexity of the role. It could also depend on the market, right? What's the availability of talent, and also the level of investment of the company into their recruiting function, right? And all of these factors will actually play a part in determining how well you can optimize for speed and efficiency. And the analogy that I like to use is that your career is a bit like finding your life partner, right? Or trying to find somebody to have a relationship with. Speed's definitely important, but I think more often than not, it's more important to get it right rather than to do it fast. So having said all that, I do agree with what Zhenlin mentioned earlier, right? There are parts of the recruitment process that we can definitely look at, where perhaps we could apply some AI or some automation to try and speed things up a bit. So these are some of the things that we could do to close some of the gaps. But ultimately, recruitment is still very much a human-to-human activity.
It is, yeah. At the end of it, yes, I think technology does play a huge role in shortening the overall process by opening better communication channels. Data can help you decide better. There's a lot of things that technology can help you with, but yes, you have to keep the human aspect also alive in this entire, because at the end of the day, the candidates who are applying for jobs at your organization want to have a human connection with the people they're getting, they're going to work with. So that's important. And you very rightly give the analogy of finding the right life partner. I think, yes, that's true. While speed is important, quality is very important. So it has to be right rather than just looking at, rushing things up that way. So great points there. Thank you so much, Jerald, for sharing that. Zhenlin, we've spoken a lot about how communication becomes very important during these processes, because you don't want to keep people waiting. Jerald also pointed that out, and you have to keep telling them where you are at your application process. So according to you, how do you improve communication during the recruitment process and without also adding additional manpower resources there?
Yeah, great question, and a very timely one in this point in time where everybody is asked to do more with less, or if you're lucky, you are asked to do more with the same. And at the end of the day, it's a matter of prioritizing your time, right? How do we help recruiters prioritize their time? Everyone has the same 24 hours, but where should they really focus on, where they need to zoom in on the top tier candidates to make sure that those candidates get an awesome experience, we get them through the door quickly, we get them through processes quickly so that we can hire them more quickly before somebody else comes in and grabs them, right? Every day of delay, you're actually allowing your candidates to go out and apply for another job, right? And that's why we want to kind of short circuit, cut through that process and intercept that by being quick in our response. And to do that, you could look at things like as simple as some screening rules that you can apply in automation, where you help your candidates be prioritized instead of going through every single CV from top to bottom, ask them important critical questions that's going to assess their suitability for the role. Of course, don't ask them 10, 20 questions and then they'll start dropping off and not complete the application, but ask them the questions that really count. And then from there, we can start prioritizing, okay, these are the top tier candidates that I really need to spend my time on. If I don't find anybody suitable there, then maybe I'll look at the next tier down and the next tier down. So that's in terms of prioritization, how automation can really just come in and help remove some of the time wastage if you're going through every single one of those 100 CVs that you're getting every day. And the next thing is when it comes to reaching out to candidates, right? We often require recruiters to move candidates through different steps of the process in the system just to keep track of how many people are actually sitting in new application, how many people are sitting in hiring manager review. But if you think about, I'm already moving these candidates in my applicant tracking system to another status. Why can't I just send an automated message to them? And when we say automated message, I know a lot of people sort of cringe and like, it's going to be this really dry robotic response. Don't do that. Craft your response in a way that reflects your brand the best. Make it conversational. Make it as if that you are really talking to your candidate, telling them that, hey, this is going on. We're actually reviewing some other candidates right now. You're still in the shortlisted bucket, for example. Hang tight. We'll get back to you soon. So using language that is more personable. It's important in communication, but then allowing automation to help you do that with your candidates. I think it's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, also with the the increasing use of generative AI, I think is helping recruitment teams in a big way these days. I've been hearing a lot about how AI can help you maybe communicate better at times or maybe screen better. So I think that's also going to play a huge role. So overall, so Jerald, we do see the role of technology becoming very, very important. So according to you, how is the role of technology going to be in enhancing the speed and efficiency of the recruitment process, which adds to this overall candidate experience that we've been discussing? And what about you? Have you employed technologies like AI, automation to improve the speed of hiring or enhance the overall experience?
Yeah, that's a big question, Yasmin. So look, I think in general terms, right, technology will always force us to adapt and evolve. That's definitely something that we can't avoid. Recruitment today is already very different from recruitment 10 or 20 years ago, right? I mean, some of us might remember the days when recruitment was done primarily through advertisements and newspapers. LinkedIn didn't exist back then. Today everything is almost done on LinkedIn. Who knows what technology is going to replace LinkedIn in 10 or 20 more years, right? But I think ultimately, how we evolve and adapt also depends on what the priorities of the organization are, right? Because if you break down the recruitment process into its different components, there are a lot of things that you can optimize for, and it's really up to the company what they want to focus on, right? To me, like every little bit helps, because there's a lot of technologies out there. If you look at the current AI and tools out there, there are actually a lot of parts of the recruitment process that can be automated, like what Zhenlin mentioned earlier with interview scheduling, for example. That's one of the big ones. Initial CV screening is another big one. Scheduling interviews, following up with candidates, managing your CRM or your talent pools, right? All of these are things that I think AI and the technology can potentially become very useful and help to save time. To Zhenlin's earlier point, right, around templates. So just to share with you guys, we're actually in the midst of implementing a new recruitment platform in foodpanda. And one of the things that we're actually doing is looking at, templates, right? Well, actually, it's more than that. I mean, we're working with the project team to try and influence a little bit the future state and the future design. And it all starts with putting yourself in the candidate shoes, right? And there's like millions of things that we can do to improve the process. But on the topic of templates, it's less about finding a replacement for the human being that's delivering the message, but it's about having enough templates to cover, the right situations on hand. And these are editable, right? So if you drill down into the templates, it starts off with, very standardized things, but it's still up to the recruiter individually to personalize the experience for the candidate. So, what the template does is it actually saves you maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes of time, right? And if you add that up over hundreds of candidates in the course of a year, those are the savings that just that one tool is going to give you, right? So definitely we are investing in technology and tools. We've also done the same with our sourcing capabilities, right? So we've invested in tools that help us to manage our talent pools a bit better, build our talent communities, follow up with them, scheduling interviews as well. We've implemented some tools in that regard. And I think there's also value in software that can help our recruiters generate, job descriptions that are less biased and more inclusive. So that's maybe something that we will look into at some point. But yeah, I mean, definitely we are quite interested and always constantly looking at ways to become more efficient using tools and AI.
Yeah, and I think technology, as I said earlier, also it plays a huge role in that, because it's not humanly possible to do so many things at scale at the same time with speed, with efficiency. So if you can automate, but yes, the key word again here is personalized. While you're automating a lot of your processes and a lot of your structures in the recruitment process, if you can create those personalized experiences with the help of technology, I think that's going to be the main point in the making your entire candidate experience better, making your recruitment process more efficient at the end of it. So that's where technology comes in. That's where human connect comes in. But it's going to be a good combination of both. So thanks for sharing that. I think Zhenlin and Jerald, great points. Coming to the final question for this episode actually now, and it all boils down to business, right? At the end of it, how are you impacting business? So Jerald, I'd like to hear from you, working with such a large organization. In your experience, how can one tie up the outcome of a candidate experience with business goals and other outcomes, business outcomes, basically?
Right. So I'll put it this way. Candidate experience is tied to employer brand, which in turn determines how easily the employer can attract talent to join their organization, right? I like to say quite often, if a company has poor employer branding, then no matter how hard their recruiters work, the talent pool is always going to be limited, right? Because you can't attract candidates to even apply or interact with your company. So for that reason, acquiring great talent is a core pillar of our business strategy in foodpanda. In our super competitive market, hiring the right people can help us to compete and win. And we always want to have a high talent density, and that's a high concentration of high performers, right? And we want to be able to attract, recruit, and retain them. And that's something that is really, really important for us as a business, right? So in that sense, candidate experience impacts our access to talent, right? And it determines our talent density, which in turn determines our performance and therefore our business objectives.
Yeah, I think that's a nice correlation that you've built. So when you're an employer brand, you attract the right talent. When the right talent comes in your place, when there's talent density, you perform better as a business. So I think that's a great chain and a great correlation you created. Thanks, Jerald. Zhenlin, I'd like to hear from you, from your experience with working with multiple organizations also. How can we tie up a good candidate experience with business goals?
Maybe I'll offer the flip side of what Jerald is saying. Every position that's not filled is actually revenue loss for the company, right? If you think about stores and retail stuff, frontline stuff, if you think about folks in the technology space like foodpanda, for example, and your lack of engineers or lack of developers, you're losing business. So if we think about it that way, the candidate experience and how we are helping the candidate move through the process faster with ease, being able to identify more closely with your brand, with your employer brand, and wanting to join a company because they know that they are valued through that process. I think it's really important to reduce the losses that you're actually incurring every single day that your jobs are not being filled.
Great point, I think, Zhenlin. I think, as you said, every empty position that goes, it's resulting in revenue loss for your organization. That's a complete direct correlation between candidate experience or recruitment experience and business goals. So great points. It was a very, very insightful conversation, Jerald and Zhenlin. Great points to hear from you. I think we know that in this employee-driven market, candidate experience has become extremely critical. It's related to business, as we just discussed. It's related to what kind of talent you're attracting. All about building that employer brand if you want great talent. And for that, a good candidate experience becomes very, very critical. So you have to keep that communication open, try and make it more seamless, frictionless, meaningful. The speed of response matters. How informed are you keeping your candidates informed? How personalized are you creating? And how is technology overall playing a role in this? By easing the process for you, by speeding up your recruitment process, by speeding up the way you're communicating with your prospective employees, that's going to be very, very important. So a candidate experience overall, if I have to sum it up, is a good combination of automation, technology, and the human connect, putting it all together and ensuring that there's immense experience that is seamless, that is meaningful, and that is something that goes on with open communication from both the ends. So thank you so much, Zhenlin and Jerald. It was a pleasure talking to the both of you.
Likewise. Thanks, Yasmin.
Thank you. So I'll see you all for the next episode now. Till then, everyone take care and stay tuned.